It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Presented by the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com, brought to you by MidFirst Bank. Go to midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40 to sign up for the OU Rewards credit card today. Well, the Sooners hit the road, heading to Manhattan, Kansas. Will be there with them. We're also going to go stop by Raytown, Missouri to see Dontae Manning this weekend. So looking forward to a big weekend out on the road again. The Eskridge Lexus podcast be coming at you this weekend, so make sure you subscribe to that and this podcast if you're not to both. So welcome to the entire crew, Josh, Eddie, Bob, myself, coming off of a big win against West Virginia. I'm actually watching it on my TV screen right now as we're doing the podcast because it's replaying. And Josh, I guess we'll start with you like Eddie likes to do every week. Just your thoughts on the West Virginia victory.
I was trying to think of something really original because obviously you guys know I listen to the postgame, and I thought you guys hit on a lot of good points. The thing that sticks out to me, the more I watch, and I said something, and I was talking on the board with, I think it was through the board chat, and we were just talking about Tre Brown and the secondary and kind of how that all looks. Guys, I could make a case that in spite of Tre Brown, over the last few weeks, kind of almost seeming like the weak link in that secondary, he probably is playing better than he did last year. It's just the bar has been raised to such a level that it looks off. It looks like something's wrong. And I think Tre Brown's actually been pretty good. It's just he's the guy that teams seem to be going at.
Well, yeah, and it's also kind of that thing like, it's almost like the turnovers thing to me. It's like, okay, you can gripe about the turnovers, but you're getting it done. You can gripe about Tre Brown's penalties and being handsy and getting some PIs here and there.
And I am.
He is. But
at least the Title IX investigation is not going to stem out of it.
But he's getting the job done. I mean, you're still getting people off the field on third down. You're still forcing the other team to punt. Like, it's working. I mean, you're getting handsy, but it's working.
If nothing else, it's just probably a sign of how far this group has come that you can even be critical of something like that. Or just know, like, the fans they've pointed out that what are the two things? Like, maybe they haven't been tested as much with vertically with the deep ball, which they were a little bit by Kendall in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is the turnover thing. But if those are the two things that you have to bitch about, I think this thing's come a pretty long ways in, less than 365 days.
Yeah.
I'm starting not to believe about them being tested. I think it is just because they're draped on these guys now. Those throws aren't there. You can't just...
The two throws that Austin Kendall made back-to-back to Tre Brown, really good throws. The one he made on the other side to Parnell Motley was a little underthrown, but Motley was right there. I mean,
exactly.
In other years, that receiver probably would have come back to the ball and jumped over Motley and made a catch. And you'd been like, but Motley was right there.
And then other years, there might be beat by a step or two, so it looks like they're being tested deep because the quarterback knew he could complete the pass, where this year they're kind of locked on him more, and it's an iffy 50-50 chance that quarterback doesn't want to make that throw.
I do think, though, that it all comes back to, and we didn't see it that much, and we talked about it on the post-game podcast on Saturday, it was just the fact that, they really didn't show a whole lot versus West Virginia as far as getting after the quarterback.
Weird.
But I do think that a lot of what we've seen in Oklahoma's secondary and just the solid play overall stems from having something of a presence up front and putting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, but that was the thing that was encouraging about West Virginia. A lot of three-man rushes. I mean, Josh, you did the Monday Morning Idiot. I was surprised just sitting in the press box watching it real time how many three-man rushes that Alex Grinch put out there. And, I mean, I don't know that he blitzed maybe more than twice in that entire game.
Well, I thought you guys, and another thing I was kind of talking about with the pod, I thought you hit the nail on the head. If you'd have told me they had that many tackles for loss, there's no way I would have believed you. Like,
was it
I had
9? Was that the final?
Yeah. And it didn't feel that way. And that's not to say that the defense didn't feel like they had the better of things. They really did. I thought in a lot of ways, that was one of their more dominant performances. But like you said, Carey, there were a lot of three-man rushes, and I think that was kind of the adjustment they made. And I think that's something Alex Grinch, we haven't really talked a lot about, but how quickly they adapt to what offenses are throwing at them in those first 15 scripted plays or so. Because it's not just like, okay, they got a touchdown out of that first 15 scripted. You saw those first 2 runs off the edge, and then Oklahoma kind of makes a change. And you're just seeing them adapt really quickly. And I think that's because of the simplicity of that scheme. They can pretty easily, okay, we're going to change this a little bit. We're going to change our fit here. Like, it's not, okay, well, we move this guy or we change this alignment. We've got to change 3 other things. Like, it's very straightforward. So I think that's helped. And like I said, I think with what you see in that defensive group, they just made a decision. Like, Austin Kendall was, doing those quick snaps. They break the huddle, quick snap, and then a quick throw. I don't care who you are. I don't care if your defensive line's got Reggie White on it. You're not getting to the quarterback. So they just decided we're going to drop, we're going to play coverage because 3 or 5 or however many we bring, they're not getting home anyway.
It's funny that you say that, Josh. I was driving home last night from post-practice interviews, and it just so happens that I usually catch like the first 20 minutes of, because I Chick-fil-A Tuesdays, so I obviously have to stop at Chick-fil-A in Norman because there isn't one in downtown Oklahoma City that I would like to go to. That was a sidebar. But I'm driving home, so I listened to the first part of the Lincoln Riley show with Toby Rowland, and he brought up that exact point just as far as West Virginia. He thought Toby was basically saying that Oklahoma has been very good this year at adjusting on the fly to what opposition opposing offenses are doing. And I really hadn't thought about it, but a perfect example is how that West Virginia game started. Just what you said, as far as they basically ran the same 2 plays on the first 2 plays of the game, one direction, one the other way. And, I thought it was kind of interesting the way that Lincoln Riley answered the question, just as far as there's a belief in what they're doing. There's an understanding of what they're doing. And what stuck out to me was he said something, and I don't want to misquote him, but it was something to the effect of, basically, they're not reinventing the defense every week. And so, through a progression of 7-8 weeks, they know exactly what they have to do when they see something, and there's an answer for it or there's a counter for it. And, I don't think that was necessarily a shot at Mike Stoops, but I did think it was pretty telling as far as there's a system in place. They believe in it. It's something that we've talked about almost every week as far as Alex Grinch's belief in what they're doing defensively. And, I think we're starting to see the product of it as far as a much more comfortable group out there, and a group that can, when something's thrown at them, they have answers for it, basically.
I don't want to dissect everything that, has gone into the changes. It's been a lot. I don't want to get into another war with the board over.
Of course you don't, Carey.
That's like saying...
why do you mention that you don't want to get in a war with the board if you always don't want to get in a war with the board?
That's like saying no offense and then saying something very, very offensive.
No, but yeah, with all due respect, Mr. Dennett. No, but I mean...
There's obvious changes, though.
You can dissect different aspects that have made this defense better. Yes, I'm going to say it now, loud and clear. So you can hear it in the back. Scheme has mattered, and switching to a one gap has been great for Neville Gallimore. It's been great for Ronnie Perkins.
I need to edit in some applause right there as well. Oh, there we go. Is that Linda or is that your hands?
That's been part of it, and like I never said
Eddie,
it wasn't
we don't know where
part
our hands starting in.
That's
working hands,
and I never said that didn't matter. I just said it wasn't the end all be all. But it's also been the fact that more guys are playing, there's more guys that are confident, more guys are being developed, and also communication. Yeah. I mean, which was to me, as big, if not bigger part than the gap scheme up front, when you had 2 or 3 guys that were looking to the sideline with their hands raised like, what the hell am I doing on this play? Like, you don't have that anymore. Everybody looks down at their wristband, they know what they're doing, and then they play.
I think that kind of goes into not changing things every weekend. Like they know exactly what they're doing. It's refreshing in a way, but it's also kind of maddening because it's like, gosh, they've been I don't want to say they've been better than what I thought they could be, or even possibly thought they had the ceiling to be, and I still don't think that they've played. I guess Texas is probably like the top level of how good they can play, especially getting after the quarterback and things like that. I mean,
by the way, Texas's offensive line was named the midseason Joe Mort Award.
Yeah, that was strange. Oklahoma should send the trophy back.
Yes,
Bill Bedenbaugh should just be like, we don't want this anymore.
They just need to pay attention. Like, what are you watching out there? By the way,
I'm not their offensive line coach. Did they not get?
I will draw the line. I'm drawing the line in the sand. If you go on the board and you say that Carey Murdoch still says scheme doesn't matter, you're banned. I am banning you for a month. All right. And there'll be people that take me up on that just because Josh knows us. We have habitual line crossers.
Yes.
Sounds like something they would do in Turkey. A dictator would do.
Just call me Cardigan.
You said it. That's what we're calling you from now on.
Cardigan.
I mean, have as a whole, would you say, and I think that we can say that now that we're more than halfway through this thing, have they been better defensively? Like, I've been almost surprised how good they've been at some points, as far as like you almost would rather see them out on the field, be like, they can get some stops.
You know what gives me pause though is because I remember what happened the last time we went to Manhattan. And I remember sitting there at halftime thinking, this season's they're gonna lose this game. Like, they played terrible, and in
the first half.
In the first half, that's what I said at halftime. Like, I was like, what is this team? Who are these people? Where did that OU team go that we've been watching, for all this time?
I think it's a tougher spot. It's probably one of the more tough spots to go win a road game in the Big 12. I would say, just for the fact that
their fans get rowdy.
Yeah, it's a good game day atmosphere.
They've scored at least 40 in their last 4 trips there. I'm not buying it. I'm not.
I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. That was the definition.
They're a 24-point favorite this weekend.
That was the definition of a letdown the last time you saw it. But now they got their heads out of their asses at halftime, and it's like, they won that game 55-0 4 years ago when they sat in the airport forever.
Yeah.
But like 2 years ago, that was a perfectly fine team. They really hadn't shown anything. Like, Rodney Anderson was not a star at that point. Marquise Brown was not a star at that point. Both those guys emerged in that game.
Yeah, that was also that was like this. That was, I think, probably one of the bullet points in the if you were going over like a Mike Stoops eulogy. These people are crazy. Remember the kid that flipped me off?
Oh yeah, the little
kid. Like 8 years ago.
Didn't you say you saw him?
No,
recently?
He followed me on Twitter. Little bastard.
Did you say anything to him?
Well, I tweeted out something to the effect of, it was like, Throwback Thursday or something. Like, I'll never forget this kid.
Yeah, if it's going bad for you.
That guy was like, that's me. And I was like, you're kind of my hero, kid.
If it's going bad
Casey
for you.
Anthony would have kept you around for a little bit.
You tell him horns up for peace.
Yeah, probably.
You don't want to hear this a whole lot.
I don't know. For some reason, I kind of like K-State.
I do like K-State. I like this. I like the Wabash Cannonball.
I like the people up at K-State.
It is the greatest collection of white people bad dancing at once when the Wabash Cannonball plays.
Kansas State's kind of like the Mormon brother of
it really is. There's not
the Big 12.
There's never been much diversity in Manhattan, Kansas.
Well, I think that's just Kansas as a whole.
Yeah.
I guess Jordan Phillips would argue.
It is really weird.
Until you get to Kansas City, I guess.
That you do hit like
or
this line. Or
Adidas-sponsored Lawrence.
You do hit this line where like the black people just disappear. Is this racist? No.
I just wanted that to be as awkward as possible.
And it was.
No, I do. I like the trips to Manhattan, though. I don't think Pete Hughes will be welcoming in the Oklahoma contingent, though.
He survives the game.
Well, that's true too, I guess, in a way. That's crossing the line.
So, but no, I mean, look, they are 4-2. They're a capable team, and they're gonna. I think the one thing that Oklahoma has going for them in this game is every team that they play, and this is what Kansas State's gonna do. They're gonna try and slow it down. I have called Kansas State the Shoney's of the Big 12 because even though they have new management, they're still old. Like, I don't know how you feel about that, Eddie. You were calling for Bill Snyder's head, but they they still
They'd
play.
be 3-3 if Bill Snyder was that coach, because they definitely would have gone down to Starkville and
resemble like a Lubies or a Furs.
It is kind of funny that they've made all these changes, and you watch what they're doing offensively, and it looks very similar to what. But I think that's kind of how K-State needs to play. Yeah, it's like that's kind of their identity.
Well, they're just never going to have the athletes that man for man are going to go beat Oklahoma and Texas. They're going to have to be a little deceptive. They're going to have to be creative in the way they do things. And like Carey said, they're going to have to shorten the game as much as possible so that they're not facing Oklahoma for 85 snaps, because they're just not going to hold up under that.
Which is what Texas has tried to do, which is what West Virginia tried to do. I would say Kansas kind of tried to do that a little bit. So, I mean, everybody's tried to shorten the game against Oklahoma. The problem is you have to stop Oklahoma from having 2- and 3-play drives of their own, which nobody's really been able to do, except for Texas.
I was gonna make this argument that Oklahoma's offensive line and I think that they did in that Texas game when they needed to be able to run the ball, they were able to put it away. But rather than having 8 plays or going on like a New England Patriots 16-play drive. It was just the 2 runs. It was the 42-yarder and then the 29-yarder by Ramondre, and all of a sudden they were at the 5-yard line. But I think that will all come. I thought that
they did have that. They did have that drive against Texas.
We can get into the offensive line.
That's
here
the only time
bit,
they've needed it too.
Yeah, no, that is true. That's true.
I mean, that's something.
But they were, I guess, in a way, they were still able to do that. Yep. I thought it was funny talking to Bill Bedenbaugh yesterday. For some reason, I just get the feeling that he really genuinely enjoys this group of offensive linemen. Like, it almost gives off a feel that in the long-term scheme of things, he thinks that this group could be a lot better than the last group ever thought about being. And that's almost just shocking in a way.
And that's kind of
knowing
what we
how
said.
good that they were.
Based on recruiting, this group should be better than everyone who just came before them.
I mean, look, Marquise Hayes has a chance to be a star. I mean, he has a chance to be included right up there with Ben Powers and Cody Ford, I think, is just interior maulers. Even though Cody Ford made his name as a tackle, his final year. But it's a different team with a different personality. Like, I was talking to Creed Humphrey yesterday, and I said, so who's the most talkative one? He's like, everybody. Like, we all talk smack. Like, whereas Ben Powers, you knew he was just kind of, that's why I called him the accountant. He was just silent, and you thought maybe he murdered people on the side. You just didn't know. But he had a different type of temperament. But these guys, they buy into like Creed said yesterday, someone said, do you celebrate blocks as much as you do touchdowns? And he said, yeah, when we stick a guy's face in the dirt, or Tyrese does, or Marquise does, I celebrate it just like CD does scoring a touchdown.
They got I don't even know if it's a mean streak. It's just like I think when you're as good as they are, like, in a way, it's kind of cocky the way that they talk about wanting to improve offensively. And you look at, like, the numbers, and it's like, you're averaging over a first down a play.
Yeah.
Like, how it's almost kind of bordering on fig jam as far as, like, you're so good right now. And I joked about it with CD yesterday. I was like, so is the perfect offensive game for OU right now 8 one-play 80-yard plays that go for touchdowns? Because, I mean, what is the next step for these guys offensively? And I get what they're talking about. Even Bill Bedenbaugh said it yesterday, just as far as, like, I know we're good, but I want to be historically great, is basically what he was saying.
They're good, but they're still so young, that they haven't reached their potential.
It's ridiculous to think about.
Here's how good they are. They're so good that it doesn't matter that Eric Swinson is not a dominant left tackle. Like, it's just and maybe some of that is because Jalen Hurts runs before he ever has a chance to really stay in the pocket for too long. I think that's covered up some of that too. But, I mean, let's face it, Eric Swinson's a nice player, but he is not a great left tackle.
No,
I wouldn't mention him with the other guys.
No,
they all feel like NFL guys.
Right. I don't think that and I love Eric Swinson, but
you do?
Basically because he follows me on Twitter, but
that's all.
I don't think anybody's saying that he's going to be the next Orlando Pace or something like that,
But Carey,
unfollowed.
That's
probably.
He might be.
That's a great point, though. Like, it hasn't even come up this year that Eric Swinson is problematic or they're going to get attacked there or whatever. And don't get me wrong, they're going to face better pass rushers if they get into the playoffs. Like, that day can come. But they've been so dominant. And and I don't want to make it sound like it's for and him because Swinson's played well enough he's played respectively. There's no problem with what he's doing.
Sure.
But those other four, we talked about it some in the preseason. Those guys were more highly recruited, more talented than their predecessors, other than obviously Creed, who is the overlap. But there was going to be growing pains, and like I said, Adrian Ely and Marquise Hayes, those guys are just touching what they can be. I mean, those guys are potential first-round picks if they can put it all together.
I wouldn't want to see the number 2 for Ohio State lined up against Swinson.
Ooh, you don't want to see number 2 lined up against any.
No,
that dude is he's a mutant. He's from some other place.
He does look kind of like he looks like a weird predator CeeDee Lamb. I don't know what that whole thing is.
He's like CeeDee Lamb if CeeDee Lamb swallowed CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, that would not be good for Eric Swinson. You'd have to pretty much spend your whole day rolling Jalen Hurts away from him, although they've got other guys.
They might get there at some point.
Yeah.
Could be a possible playoff matchup.
Let's just give us Alabama, Oklahoma first before that happens. If that has to be the matchup.
Could you make a case at this point in the year that Ohio State and Oklahoma are the 2 most balanced teams in the country?
You absolutely could.
Yes.
I think they are.
That's crazy to think about.
And I think
it depends. Am I on ESPN or am I on Fox?
Exactly. Like it's not even like it's driving me insane that no one is even critically looking at Alabama and Clemson this year. It's just some people are. I mean, like I think JoJo is definitely Clemson's there no matter what. They won it last year. JoJo drives me insane. Where Jesse Palmer actually is like, well, they don't look that good. Like they don't look sharp. And Ohio State looks, but like somehow Ohio State has gotten put in that category of okay, they're really good on both sides of the ball, but OU hasn't been put in that category yet.
I'm still in this just ultimate surprise place of not really surprise place, but I've become so numb to it that you would think that some of these SEC schools, like week in and week out, are just these mammoth programs. When in reality, like Missouri got beat by Vanderbilt this weekend.
Yeah,
past weekend,
and they were leading
Mississippi
the division.
State is a bad football program.
Yeah,
Ole Miss is terrible. Arkansas is awful. Tennessee is dog shit.
Yeah,
like I guess I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing. Like I think that
it's so
Alabama is
bizarre
obviously good. I think LSU's pretty damn good. Georgia's decent. I think they have some questions
Georgia's
offensively.
Decent. That's all you can say about them. Yeah,
they beat not a very good Kentucky team in the second half. It was tied at halftime. Neither team had scored. Like, don't tell me that that's just SEC defenses.
Kirby Smart is less milesing that Georgia program. Like LSU less milesing.
It's kind of weird what has happened to Jake Fromm this year. I guess he's still having a decent year.
He's a good quarterback, man. They are not. I don't know if they're trying to be too, play action, too I formation, too tailback centric, or maybe they just don't have the receivers. I mean, they did lose out on Jaden Hazelwood.
Yeah, I guess just at the end of the day, it feels differently for OU just because they are so much more complete than they have been in years past.
Well, Kirby left just before Nick made the changes at Alabama, so he's not up on that part of things.
Right,
he's like,
yeah.
We still run power and I formation. That's all we do here. So, like I said, Jake Fromm is a good player. He is the definition of a game manager. I mean, that's what he's not going to do things that beat you. He's not going to kill you, except for the South Carolina game. Had some bad moments there. But, I mean, generally speaking, he's a guy that's going to put you in good positions if there's guys around him who can make the plays that win games. And
I would love to see what Lincoln Riley could do with Jake Fromm. I would love to see what he would do with Jake Fromm.
I would love to see what Lincoln Riley could do with Jake Sills. Like Lincoln Riley could. I'm now
convinced. That's too far, Josh. Why don't you just go Patrick Fletcher while you're at it, and we'll just call it a day.
Come on, Fletcher would have won a Big 12 Player of the Year under Lincoln Riley. I feel pretty confident.
Oh,
I had some doubt about Jalen Hurts, and don't get me wrong, like he's not perfect. But the way Lincoln Riley designs an offense to fit that quarterback, what's the riddle he can't solve? Like what's the guy that you're like, nope, that's just too far? I mean, I don't know who that guy is. I mean, it's the guy that didn't start for his JV team in middle school.
And that answer to Barry's question, I know we were trying to get into Jalen Hurts' personality, but Lincoln gave a great answer in terms of Jalen Hurts, the player, and how comfortable he feels. And now, I mean, we're heading into the second half of the season, and it's clear those two are on the same page every single time now.
I was really disappointed in Lincoln Riley during his press conference Monday. He clearly does not stand with abstinence before marriage. His analogy about red shirting and freshmen and how, when you're dating a girl, it's a lot different when you finally move in together.
I thought it was just interesting that Jason Kersey agreed with him. I'm more worried about the Kersey household than I am about the Riley household.
I think Kersey was living in sin before he got married.
It was
Josh was living in sin before he got married.
Oh, he did say that he was.
I wasn't living in sin, but I had her dog. The dog was with me.
That might be worse than the other.
Say, Bob, that took a turn.
You didn't live in sin, but the dog was her dog. Like you shared a dog, or you got the dog was yours, and
it was her dog. And when we got engaged, then the dog came and lived with me.
But she didn't live with you.
Correct.
I bet there was a camera on top of the dog. You were being watched the entire time.
You're lucky she ended up following through marriage because obviously you passed the test.
Before we were going to get married, we had to do the marriage counseling with the guy that was a pastor. Everybody has to do it. And so as we're talking with him, he's like, so do you guys, do you live separately? Do you live together? We're like, we live together. And he's like, well, okay. And you can see like his whole body like tighten up.
Isn't that special?
And he's like, well, until the wedding, maybe, Josh, you could sleep on the couch or something. And I'm like, I just stare at him. I'm like, that's never going to happen. like that's my bed. She moved into my house. If she wants to sleep on the damn couch, that's her call, but I'm not doing it. And Tiffany is one of those, like, I'll be confrontational. I have no problem with it. Tiffany is super nice and like doesn't want to rock the boat ever. And she's like, well, that's an interesting idea. And I'm like, what are you? Okay, you sleep on that damn couch. Like it was a really awkward like 15 seconds with our pastor at that point. Who, like, the worst part was like I went to high school with his daughter, and I didn't know that I went to high school with his daughter, and he was like, yeah, you, and I was like, oh yeah, I tried to pretend, but it was clear I didn't remember her at all, and he pretty much hated my ass from then on. So
yeah, I'm that way. I've got to break out my yearbook to see what people look like in high school. I can't just put a name out there sometimes with high school people.
Yeah, and I guess that makes me the asshole. I don't know, but I was like, yeah, because he said something, and he was like, oh, yeah, I mean, you know her. She went to Putnam West. And I was like, oh, what years? And he was like, she graduated with you. I was like, oh crap. Wow, that's bad. So,
that's never good.
Yep.
You know what is good? MidFirst Bank. And you can go and sign up for the OU. They're the exclusive provider of the OU credit card. Go to midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40. You can apply today for the OU Rewards credit card. There's all kinds of great stuff that goes along with this because every time you register or you spend on your OU credit card, you're registered for a chance to win the ultimate game day experience. Every qualifying purchase made with your OU Rewards credit card earns you a chance to win the ultimate game day experience with VIP tickets to a football or basketball game plus $500. So you also enjoy 0% APR for the first 12 months. And I know you always want to show that OU fandom. Maybe it's not always proper to just be head to toe in OU gear. If you think that it is okay to be in OU gear head to toe, you probably don't like us or this podcast. I'm gonna guess that. But if you want to whip out that credit card, hey, here's my OU credit card. You can always show people your OU pride. So go to midfirst.com/U40 and sign up today. Apply for that OU Rewards credit card from MidFirst Bank. We appreciate them being the title sponsor of the Unofficial 40 podcast, as always. So the schedule for 2020 came out yesterday, guys. There's already a problem. There's a major problem. I don't know if I have. I guess I did tell you guys this morning. So I got a call this morning. The biggest thing you notice about the schedule coming out, Bedlam is in October.
That whole month of October is
The
crazy.
entire month of October is insane. But here's the problem. I have a niece. She's getting married. We had discussions over the summer. I feel like I'm partially at fault here too.
You never thought.
Because she said, when is Bedlam? Like, that was what she was mainly concerned with. Like, we don't want to schedule the wedding during Bedlam because it's going to be in Norman that year, and it would be a bad. Not only is it tough for people to get there and travel, and the hotels are all going to be booked in Norman. So the schedule come, and I say, well, it's always the last game. It's always in Norman. Like, it wouldn't be. And sure as shit, the schedule comes out. Was it October 24th?
Mm-hmm.
Bedlam. The weekend she had already decided was going to be her wedding.
Yeah.
Thankfully, her mom had already booked hotels, and she reconfirmed today, and she has like a block of 60. So, crisis averted.
Do you feel people will skip out on the wedding to go to Bedlam?
I am not here nor there. Her stepfather has made me an example to say, if Carey can be here, you can be here. I will not be at Bedlam. That's one thing I do know for sure. You guys will be handling Bedlam weekend.
Where is your dedication to this site, Carey?
Don't get married during football season.
Well, she's marrying a guy from Boston. She went to UMass, so he doesn't care about college football.
He's a big John Calipari guy.
Plus, he went to UMass. I mean, come on. You think those people really give a crap about college football?
People love Minutemen football.
They really don't. I think they're terrible this year. They've been terrible for a while.
Yeah, they're worse than UConn, which is saying something with Randy Edsall going off about the Youngs.
Him and Fitzgerald, they need to get together.
And Gundy can be
UMass
right
is
there
having
with
a
him.
good year. They're 1-6. Okay.
Yeah, I knew it.
They got beat by 27 by Rutgers.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
First
is
week
there
of the
anything
season.
more? Who did they beat?
They beat
Stony Brook?
Akron.
No. Really? Is Akron that bad?
Akron had a bad day.
Interesting.
Okay.
I think Akron was favored in that game too.
Where's Baker's
You probably
first
had
game?
money on it.
No, I'm not playing Akron UMass. When I do, that's when we need to make some phone
That's
calls.
rock bottom.
Intervention
Eddie hits
time.
the FCS parlay circuit.
If there was value, there would be. I would.
Sam Houston State's covered their last 6 games. It's been amazing.
Noted.
Okay, so the schedule stands out. But, Bob, let's start with you. Just what was the most surprising? You've got, obviously, the October thing that you mentioned earlier, but you've also got the bye week situation.
Yeah, they have a bye week after Tennessee, and then they go to Army in 9 straight conference games. That's 10 weeks in a row without a break. I mean, that seems pretty crazy that they couldn't have put it a little later in the season. Or first of all, there is no second bye week because the season is starting a week later, so that takes away that. But the fact that, I mean, they play Missouri State and Tennessee, and I don't know how beat up they'll really be at that point. But then, this whole Grinch got to find a top 22. That's going to come into play when you're playing 10 straight weeks in a row.
It is, I mean, and the other thing about it is, like, I guess the Big 12 is like, well, if we do it this way, we're going to assure that, teams have space between the regular season and the Big 12 title game. And if Oklahoma...
If that's why they
keeps
did it.
doing it, like, keeps winning it, maybe we prevent that from happening.
It's almost like you...
But then Texas and Oklahoma State played the last game.
It's almost like a prerequisite that you have to be an imbecile to work in the league offices.
And it just feels that November schedule, I know a lot of people will give me grief on Twitter saying Kansas State, Texas Tech will be better. That's a terrible last month when you're if you're fighting for a playoff spot,
building momentum,
and those are the teams you're playing nationally, no one's going to care that you're beating those teams at that time.
Unless they're ranked in the top 10, which they're not going to be that good. I mean, they're not good enough to be those type of teams.
People say that about Texas A&M. They get ranked every year somehow.
Yeah,
but not by November. By November, the shine is finally off.
Not by the end of October. Shoot, what are you talking about now? I mean, good Lord. It's you can't just keep fighting and saying the same thing every year about the schedule sucks, the Big 12 sucks. We're reminded that every time one of these schedules comes out, and Nebraska and Missouri and Colorado aren't on it. Texas A&M, like, you're reminded that there's teams missing here that you used to enjoy watching.
You know, it's funny. Dan Orlovsky brought up a good point, and I think he's on the OU broadcast this week on ABC, just as far as, like, at what point in the season do we start saying that, you know, X team hasn't played anybody, or every team that, you know, whoever has played is shitty? It's like, we basically nowadays, if it's not a top 5 matchup, it's like, oh, that team sucks. Even if a team's in the top 25, it's like, well, they suck.
I still think Clemson won't play anybody.
No, that's the thing. It's like, there are just a bunch of shitty college football teams out there.
Well, I think that Minnesota being undefeated is a pretty good example of that.
No, exactly.
I think the problem is you've got 5 or 6 teams that are just so clearly better
than everybody else.
They're just great programs, yeah.
Exactly. And until they run into each other, it feels like they're not playing anybody. But those teams are good. They're just not on the level of Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU, Bama, and who am I leaving out?
Well, Wisconsin took themselves out of it.
Clemson, yeah. And Wisconsin, I thought Wisconsin was in that conversation, but clearly we were wrong about that. But Lovie Smith, God, that guy could lead me into battle any day with that beard.
I mean, but the NCAA, they historically have tried to make adjustments because this tends to happen historically, where you get there's a reason that there's only 85 scholarships now because teams were loaded up and too many teams were getting all the players, and they's like, well, let's limit the scholarships, and that way the parity will come back to the league. And then it came back, and now there's no parity anymore. I mean, it's back to being overweighted, like you said, to 5 or 6 teams.
I'm just as guilty as this. Like, Baylor's 7-0, and I don't think that you put Baylor and Oklahoma on the same field tomorrow at a neutral site. Like, I think OU's a 17-point favorite.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, and I'm kind of the resident Baylor guy in this podcast. Like, I get it. But
what did Oklahoma State have? 4 turnovers last weekend?
3.
Oklahoma is just at least a head above anybody else and head and shoulders above anybody not named Texas.
Who needed 50 to beat Kansas.
But here's the thing,
and is a 1-point favorite in Fort Worth this week.
Go ahead. Sorry.
What's interesting to me is you had Alabama and Clemson, who clearly had been the best 2 teams the last couple of years, and I think maybe both of them have taken a little step back, but it's like people don't react to it. They don't watch it intently or close enough to actually sit there and say, maybe these teams don't look as good as they have the last couple. Like, there's no question Alabama is not as good defensively because they're young, not because they don't have talent, but they're young, they're inexperienced, they're just not quite what they've been. They don't have, they don't have Quinnen Williamses. They don't have who is the safety, the really good one.
Oh, from last year, the kid from the Golden Triangle. What's his name?
It wasn't Thompson, was it?
Yeah, Josh Thompson.
Thompson.
Not
Josh Thompson. Deontay Thompson.
Deontay Thompson. That's it. Yep.
Or Kirkpatrick. Like those guys are in their program. They just haven't become those guys yet. So it's like maybe it's okay to question whether Alabama's kind of having a little bit of a down year, or maybe it's okay to question if Clemson, Trevor Lawrence is kind of having a sophomore slump.
I haven't watched 1 second of a Bama game yet. They just don't interest me.
I watched a little bit of Tennessee. I'm watching TV.
Carey, care to weigh in on Jeremy Pruitt and his ever-growing fan base?
That is just I'm not. Look,
I don't disagree.
What Jimbo Fisher did was so much worse. I mean, was that just last year? He grabbed the guy's face mask and ragdolled him. Like Jeremy Pruitt just kind of tugged on the bottom of his face mask. And I don't know if you saw the replay on that, Josh, but they showed what would happen if he handed the ball off to the
Jordan Rodgers
tailback.
Did a great job on that on Twitter.
They showed what would happen if he handed off he would have walked into the end zone. Instead, he just decided he was going to quarterback sneak it on his own. That's why Jeremy Pruitt was pissed. It would have been like a 21-20 game or something
28-20 with 7 minutes left or so.
Yeah, so they would only got beat by 15 instead of 20.
Yeah, I don't know. Guys, I can remember being in freaking middle school and had a coach holding my face mask and hitting me over my helmet with his whistle.
That was the thing back in the day.
It's not a big deal to anyone that's played it. And I don't want to be you people didn't play football. It's just, that's part of it. It's not, Guarantano doesn't seem to have an issue with it. Let it go. Everybody's just looking for something to be pissed off about. And if Tennessee fans or whoever want to be pissed, your head coach is Jeremy Pruitt, not his actions during the game.
Yeah, the thing they're mad about is because their football program's awful. They're not actually mad at Jeremy Pruitt.
I mean, they're hoping it's cause for a firing.
Yes,
Sure.
that's what they're hoping for more than anything.
And
another
so they
program
can have
being held hostage by an old.
Philip Fulmer.
I wouldn't let Philip Fulmer decide where to eat dinner tonight, let alone a decision for a football program.
Oh, I don't know. I bet Phil Fulmer's got some good opinions on food.
He probably knows who has good mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm
going to go.
Maybe
I'm
good prime rib
on that.
He'd probably get you a good baked potato somewhere.
Somebody needs to handcuff that man.
But as far as running your athletic department and or college football program, yes, Philip Fulmer is not my option.
Salad bar, absolutely.
We talked about it a few weeks ago, and that brings up a good point. We were talking about how Oklahoma's quarterbacks have blinded us to what it usually looks like when you're breaking in a new quarterback. We're talking about Spencer Sanders at the time. Same deal. OU fans don't understand how good they have it with Joe Castiglione because you don't deal with shit like this. There's not just chaos going on inside your program all the time because you have an athletic director who knows what he's doing, he's respected, and he handles things in a certain manner rather than these guys that are ex-football coaches or that have no idea about administration. They don't know how that stuff works, and so they do things in stupid ways, and they end up looking dumb for it. So, like I said, it's one of those things where it's just such a golden era for OU fans. I hope sometimes they appreciate how smoothly this all runs sometimes.
Yeah, you need to appreciate what you got, youngins.
You haven't had an old man Josh in a long time, damn it.
11 a.m. kickoffs, Mr. McQuistion.
Hey, that's not on him. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. Congrats to Joe Castiglione for just laying it out there and be like, we don't like it either. Instead of just kind of being the silent party, which I'm not saying he was, but that's how it's going to appear to OU fans, and good for him for not, being part of that.
Looks like he wants to schedule a home and home with Florida too.
That would be amazing.
I'd love to go to the Swamp.
I would be at the Swamp. If they play that game, I will go to that game.
Just like you went to UCLA this year?
UCLA sucks. It was going to be tough to find a ticket. I'll grant that, but still.
By the way, I will say we are going to bring back this year. I just spoke with Dari Noka this morning. We're going to bring back tickets for Hayden's Hope to benefit Hayden's Hope. So keep an eye out for that. We've done that every year, I think, the past 3 years. So we still got a few things to finalize. If you don't know about Hayden's Hope, just go look up Soonerscoop.com, Hayden's Hope, Hayden. And we've written about it in the past, but it's a great charity for families that are waiting life-saving organ transplants for infants and their children. It really helps take care of some of their expenses. So keep an eye out for that on Soonerscoop.com. All right. Also want to remind you guys, the SeatGeek app, SeatGeek, a big part of the site. Go download the SeatGeek app on your phone. because they have great ticket deals for home and away games. And it saves you a lot of the trouble of just kind of looking for, trying to figure out if you're getting a reputable person on the outside. You can download the app. You can get the seat sent right to your phone, the barcode, scan them in at the gate. And they actually they aggregate tickets from millions of different sources, and they put a grade on them of 1 to 10. We've all used the app. I know Josh is. You're probably going to get some. Are you going to get some World Series tickets maybe through SeatGeek?
I'm in debate. It is
if they won the first game. Maybe.
Yeah, that would have helped a little bit. Garrett Cole kind of that was not the way I was thinking that series was going to start.
Better go tonight. It's not going to come back to Houston after tonight.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow, it's like that.
Have you looked to see? I mean, I don't even know how much they're going for. I can't believe it's cheap.
Yeah,
because I got to think it used to be like Houston was just like the fun-loving. It was something to do for the folks. Now I got to imagine there's a lot of hardcore Astros fans in Houston that are driving the price up a little bit.
Oh, Tiffany and I talk about that all the time, how torn we are, because once upon a time, we did. I mean, no shameless plug here, but we used to use SeatGeek, and we'd go on, find like nice tickets in the second deck, where there's kind of like, it's more private. They've got people that'll come, take your orders at your seat and stuff. It's a really nice setup. And you could get those tickets for like $30 a pop, 5-6 years ago. Now, those same tickets for this game, probably $1,500. I mean, it's just a very different animal. So, but obviously back then the playoffs were a foreign entity. So, but like I said, I mean, the thing I love about it is I can kind of search around the stadium. Like you always talk about, Carey, you can find the right deal, but I think standing room only right now for the Astros, and SeatGeek I think has the cheapest I've seen, is at like $615. I mean, like it's obscene, but it's still cheaper than you're going to find anywhere else because it's the friggin' World Series.
That stadium's got to get pretty. It's got to be a pretty cool place to watch. I mean, it's got to be super loud the way that thing's built.
It really is. I mean, and it's amazing. Obviously the stadium I spent the most time in that actually has that retractable roof, and so you get it's not like a lot of the others where you can tell the grass doesn't get a lot of sun, and the of a dome type scenario. It's beautiful setup. Now that they've taken the hill out, it looks like an actual stadium. Like the hill made me crazy, but no, it's a great place to watch a game. I've even sat, with one time with some friends from out of town. We were way up in the upper deck. It's a great seat. I mean, it's a stadium where they didn't try to do too much. Like everywhere in there is a good sight line. You don't have the old, big cement post in your eyesight. It's just a great place to watch a game. I really enjoyed it, and I've probably been to 30 Astros games since I've lived here, and I've sat all over that stadium, and it's just a lot of good places to watch a game.
Well, you don't have to pay $1,500 for a ticket. You can just go to a concert, whatever. Do it through the SeatGeek app, and they'll even give you $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Just type in the promo code SCOOP. That's SCOOP, SCOOP, for $10 off your first purchase with the promo code SCOOP with the SeatGeek app. All right, guys, going to Manhattan, we're going to take a little bit of a detour, go to Raytown, Missouri, go see Dontae Manning. And Josh, I know there's been maybe, I don't know, is this the most excitement that you've seen surrounding Dontae Manning? He gave an interview to a independent website called Dog Nation, or is it not independent?
Dog Nation is affiliated with the Atlanta Journal.
Oh, AJC, okay.
Yes.
So gave an interview with them and spoke very positively about Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I've been talking, through Oklahoma and, some of the scoops over the last few weeks. There has been a clear indication to us that things were starting to turn around between OU and Manning. It was Bob, I mean, you could speak to this too. 6 weeks ago, it felt like OU and Manning were just about dead. Like, I mean,
yep.
It wasn't that OU wasn't trying. It just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And now I hear very different things. There's a lot more communication again. I mean, I don't. That's probably not the way I want to say that. I never felt like the communication changed. I feel like it's being better received. Like he's starting to see what Alex Grinch and Roy Manning and the whole defensive staff have been telling him about, and he's seeing Oklahoma do these things against passing offenses. And he's watching guys that, I mean, let's be honest, he is more talented than making a lot of plays. So that's an easy sell for him. And the fact that Oklahoma was in on him way before most of these other programs, he's super familiar with them. He knows them best. I mean, and he said in that article, pretty much Oklahoma is his leader right now. And I think with the way that defense is continuing to improve and the relationship they have, if they can get him down for another game,
they have
I think
to,
it's going
though.
to be. Yep, I think it's going to be really tough for somebody to beat Oklahoma right now. I just really like the way that's trending for them at the moment.
And he took his official in the spring, right?
Yes, he was spring game official visit. He, to my knowledge, has not been back since. You got to make that happen somehow.
Yep, I agree. And and people will say, well, maybe he can't. He came down once before in the spring. Before that, he came down unofficially once on his own. So there is some reason to believe that maybe he can get down again on his own for a game. We'll have to kind of look at that, maybe see, maybe he's got a bye week coming, just something along those lines. And I'm sure you guys will kind of talk to him about that. So I'm interested to see. I've talked to him a little bit right as kind of we were getting started here in the pod. He sounds like he's up for it, pretty excited. And I know, Bobby, you know more about it, but he's got a big game this weekend.
Yeah, they're going against North Kansas City, who is 8-0, while Raytown is 6-2. Looking at some of the same teams they played, I think we're in for a good one. And what I like about that, there's sometimes you go to a game just to watch that kid be a star and blow him out. Like when we went to see Andrew Rame last year against Norman Eddy, that was like 56-0 at halftime. That was just a showcase for Rame. That's fine. But a game like this, Manning's going to have to be that certain type of superstar if they're going to have a chance. And he'll play receiver. He'll play corner. He's not going to be one of those corners that doesn't do anything because they're going to need him to be the best player on the field.
Well, we will detour over to Raytown Friday night and then stay nearby Manhattan before we head to Kansas State Saturday morning for another 11 a.m. kickoff. But at least we'll be heading home. And I also want to give a shout out to one of our Scoop subscribers. I think Airborne Okie was his name. Offered to allow us to use his house to come record our podcast, and appreciate the offer. We are kind of crunched for time, especially on game days being that far away. Because Bob's got the baby at home, we try and get back the same night. So we'll probably just do the podcast, from the press box.
I don't have a baby and I want to get home the same night.
Yeah,
so.
Eddie's the same way. His baby is a 6-pack. And I'm the same way.
It's just better being just sleeping in your own bed.
It is. Very much so. So anyway, yeah, that's going to be a big weekend, doing all that stuff and then the bye week. So we will probably need a bye week after this weekend.
And be interesting to see how OU hits that. Roy Manning saw Dontae Manning after during the first bye week, and Dontae put on a show. See if they go see him. Talk with Vandegrift family yesterday. It sounds like they expect Shane Beamer to be at Brock's game next weekend.
And just to tease a little bit, Scoop will have some information on where a few guys are going to be. Maybe even Lincoln Riley. So it's
during the bye week. You mean?
Yeah, they're making some plans on the places they're going to be. There's already been some talk.
Cabo?
If there's a football player there, but I don't think that's what Josh is talking about.
Is FUTBOL? I mean, there's some football players down there. Football.
Linda have a nephew down there that she wants to get checked out.
Probably.
I'm gonna avoid a. I mean, we've already had a very debatable "is this racist" moment. We're gonna skip past all this. Mm-hmm. Linda and I's relationship is special, and I don't want to ruin it. So,
anything else stand out to you guys this week about media? Jalen Hurts back to giving opening statements in his press conferences.
It was just funny him mentioning we don't talk about the team they're about to play, which is generally true for just about every single play. When you're favored by 24, the interesting storyline is not who you're playing. There's other things out there that we're trying to find out.
Yeah, like replacing John Michael Terry. That you wrote about Nick Benito, and I know Marquise Brown is a big something everybody's kind of working on this week. I mean, there's a little this and that. The other thing is though, there's someone that's kind of tainted the tell us about the other team questions over the years. Because there's one person that's all he asks.
And CeeDee Lamb brings it up, which I think is funny. He's the first player. So you always ask me these questions.
And nobody wants to be that guy. So they don't. So it's like, just, yeah, we don't ever ask you about the other team because we don't want to be the nerds.
Well, you do it when it's like Texas or like the Buckeyes. Like when it's a game that feels it could go either way.
You know, the other problem about these jobs that we have is we generally don't have enough time to watch other teams play. Like, that's what I've always thought was funny about, beat writers that vote in the AP top 25. It's like, when would you ever have, like you said, you haven't even seen Alabama this year. Like, when would you have time to even really watch? You almost have to be someone that just sits at home every weekend. That's a better AP top 25 voter than someone that's actually out working on the weekend, covering a team.
Then that's what they should do. They should just give all the AP votes to bloggers. I mean, nobody pays attention to the polls anyway.
They're not important anymore. I mean, the people that
the only people that enjoy the polls are people that use Facebook constantly.
Are we ready for the first CFP poll? Is that next
November
week?
5th? I think,
it's after the bye week.
It's in November.
That's
yeah.
another thing I could do without for another month. Don't need it.
It gives you a month, though. That's good to know at least where you stand. Eddie just hates all polls.
They're just stupid. They mean nothing.
Well, they decide the national champion, the College Football Playoff Committee.
Okay, it's all going to work itself out, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
That and the Heisman Trophy. Do away with them.
Really? Do away with the Heisman?
That's just awful.
There's only a select handful of people that can win the Heisman. I've said this before.
It's gotten that way.
Yeah.
Now, it hasn't always been that way, but recent history, yes, there is a criteria that's developed, and I am for that changing.
You have to be out of blue blood. I mean, it doesn't go to the best player in the country.
No, it doesn't.
Hell no.
And it doesn't go to the best. Yeah, I mean, that includes, like, sometimes the defensive player is the best player in the country.
Sure. And if you don't play quarterback out of blue blood, you can't win it.
Lamar Jackson beating
those guys,
Deshaun Watson still ruffles me wrong.
But at the same time, Lamar Jackson statistically had one of the best seasons in the history of college football. Of course he was going to win it.
And it is about statistics.
You know,
it's like Oklahoma State fans. I've been saying for a month that, before they shit the bed, that Chuba Hubbard had no chance to win the Heisman. And
unless it
happened in 1988. Yeah, I was 1 year old in 1988.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't happen today because Oklahoma State would have to win the Big 12.
They'd have to go undefeated.
For Barry Sanders to win it.
They'd have to go undefeated, too.
And I'm pretty sure they got slaughtered by Nebraska. And not slaughtered by Oklahoma, but beaten pretty good by Oklahoma.
Luckily for Oklahoma fans, every year Oklahoma's quarterback will have a chance to win the Heisman Trophy. He fits all the the criteria.
You would think that if Jalen Hurts somehow wins it this year, people are going to be like, do we need to reevaluate our criteria?
Well, they'll just say that it was a system.
I don't think they'll say it is the system. I think they'll realize, like, we're just giving this to the best player on the best team. Because it really is, like last year it was, who were the finalists last year? Kyler?
To Haskins.
And Haskins. Yeah. So the three best quarterbacks on the three best teams, basically. I mean, Ohio State didn't make the playoff, but who else were we going to give it to? You couldn't give it to a freshman that had just taken the job halfway through his first season, and Trevor Lawrence. And then who was the other college football
Notre
team?
Dame.
They didn't have a Heisman.
Yeah, they didn't have one.
So, I mean, yeah.
Dumb award.
It's not a dumb award. It's been the criteria has become
tainted
dumb.
award.
I mean, this year, Tua, Burrow, Fields, and Hurts. Those are your four, and it's October, and you already know that those are going to be the four.
Everybody's just, I mean, if they voted today, Burrow would be the Heisman winner.
Yes.
I'm still not sold on this LSU team. I'm just not. More so than anyone else.
Well, they got Auburn this week and Bama in 2 weeks. So
they play in the SEC. They must be good.
I don't know. Florida is another one of those teams, like, they're not that good, but they keep winning because they're playing the right people.
They play in the SEC. They have to be good.
Well, like you said, Mississippi State's terrible. Tennessee's terrible.
I didn't think Florida would beat Auburn.
Vanderbilt's bad, but they get wins. By the way, the interview with Vanderbilt's coach is Derek Mason. Is that their coach, Eddie? Coach expert?
Yeah,
it is.
Like that was a really weird interview. Did you guys see that?
I heard. I never listened.
Oh my God! I guess they didn't
I don't make
play
a habit of watching the post game for a 2-5 team.
Sounds like he's made for this job or something.
It was like if you stuck a microphone in front of Roy Manning when he was doing one of his videos. It really was. He was like, "We're Vanderbilt men.
We're 2-5."
Okay,
Like, I do this,
sir. You're 26-43 at
He
Vanderbilt.
is. Yeah, he's terrible. Of course, that's a difficult job. That stadium sucks. I mean, that like, you've seen that stadium, Josh, when we used to stay.
Oh yeah, we used to stay right next
the
door
old
to
rival
it.
stuff.
Like
it is literally just a step up from the old Lewis Field at OSU. It just has concrete.
Yeah,
It's a
not.
dump.
Yeah, it's a bad stadium. But I mean, James Franklin had them winning 9 games there.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, how much are they helped by the fact that Tennessee's been a dumpster fire for 10 years
They should have been
now?
capitalizing and recruiting, and they really, really haven't.
3-9, 4-8, 6-7, 5-7, 6-7, 2-5.
What were they when Franklin was there? Are you just looking at Derek Mason's
Yeah, I'm
page?
just looking at Derek Mason's. Let's see here.
I don't know how we got off on a Derek Mason tangent.
Well, we're really getting kind of far afield. Last week it was Cal, and now we're a Vandy podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Most
Commodores.
most attention either of those programs have received in the last month, so they're welcome.
Nobody in Nashville is talking about this team.
I don't know. They might be. The Titans are awful too.
We'll be an Oregon State podcast next week.
Yeah, at least they went and got a road win over the weekend.
Hey, if Eddie can tell us who the head coach is.
Jonathan
We've already done this. This isn't fair.
Smith, I think.
That's right. Let's see.
You know, we could become an SMU podcast. They're actually worth talking about.
I don't think they're really worth talking about.
More so than Arkansas is.
Oh.
By the way, you know why SMU is doing so well is because Sonny Dykes is a genius. He just started embracing graduate transfers and just transfers in general from the Dallas area that went to big schools and got homesick. So like he's like a bottom feeder. Like he's probably calling kids at OU like, "You happy? You want to come home? You sure?" Like he's just gonna be he's steal your girlfriend.
They were 24-15 in 3 years under Franklin.
Wow.
Which means they had more wins in 3 years under Franklin than they've had since.
How good is Penn State? I didn't watch that. I gave up on that game, and then Michigan came back.
They're pretty good. I mean, I think it's one of those things where we do this every time at this point in the season, every year. We try to find these other teams. Like, okay, they can compete. They can play. No, Ohio State's going to beat Penn State by 14. Like, I mean, maybe more.
Maybe 21, yeah.
Yeah, like Ohio State's much better than Penn State is. They just are. And Penn State has the same problem they always have. They've got an okay quarterback. Like everybody, I remember 2 years ago, Trace McSorley, that's this year's Baker Mayfield. No, he's not. No, he's not. Like, he's short and he's white, and that's the only comparison.
And he can run, yeah. No, I mean, like, you know, we're doing the same. I'm sure a lot of people in this part of the country are doing the same thing with Baylor right now.
Oh, sure.
When I think Iowa State is the better team, even though they beat them.
What do you guys think in that Baylor-Texas game? I think Baylor will beat Texas.
Well, they play Texas after the Sooners, so we'll see what their mindset is.
Texas is just, I mean, that game with Kansas.
I mean, their mindset will probably be trying to get to the Big 12 championship game, even if OU beats them, right?
Wait, now say that again.
I was thinking maybe they get beat up. That's right. I'm saying OU's defense going to beat them up.
Oh,
Well, I
you're
mean,
saying Baylor will, or that
I think
Iowa
they'll
State
go
will
1-1.
play Texas after?
No, I think Baylor will go 1-1 against OU in Texas. I agree with Josh.
Baylor could be 9-0 and then has OU and Texas in back-to-back weeks.
Okay.
And then
so they play Texas after OU.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the week after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who do they play in that final game?
Kansas. They get their cupcake.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
I mean, Baylor's going to be 9-0. They're going to beat West Virginia next Thursday. They're off this week. They play West Virginia Thursday, and then they play TCU. They're going to be 9-0.
Which I think is good for Oklahoma.
I don't think it really matters.
Oh, I mean, Baylor.
I mean, he has to win.
If
He has to win every game.
Undefeated 3 weeks from now, you'll be in the top 10.
Yeah.
There is a decent chance OU Baylor is a game day game.
I think there's a very good chance that it's a game day game.
Which would be good for Oklahoma.
Sure. And that
I don't think it really matters. I mean,
why don't you think it matters? I mean, this stuff matters.
Because they have to win every game to get to the college football playoff.
Matters, though.
What's the perception, though?
The perception is that the Big 12 is weak. If they have another team that comes into the top 10 that's not Texas, that's good for Oklahoma. That's good for the Big 12. That's good for the college football playoff chances. Like, and I mean, they have to. You're right.
I mean,
they
have
to win out anyway. But you're also. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the SEC? If LSU beats Alabama barely, with a struggling Tua, and then a Tua comes back in the SEC championship, and can they play in the? No, they can't. Mm-mm. No, and then LSU wins. Let's say they win the SEC championship convincingly over Georgia. Whoever
is Bama 4?
Yeah, is Bama? Or is
an
gonna
undefeated
be
Oklahoma would not be kept out of the college football playoff.
They might
with Jalen Hurts. It won't. There's 0% chance.
You don't trust the people in that room as it is. So why are you sitting here telling me
there's 0%
that you know
chance
how they're going to vote?
There is 0% chance an undefeated Oklahoma would be kept out of the college football playoff. Just not going to happen.
It's not 0.
It's 0.
It's not 0.
An undefeated Oklahoma
Bob,
would not
is it
be
0
kept,
chance?
Because an injured Tua is the perfect excuse if Bama goes 11-1 and they lose by less than 10 points to LSU.
And you have Ohio State undefeated. You have Oklahoma. We're not paranoid. We just know that you're leaving this up to a committee that's sitting in a hotel room.
An undefeated OU will not be kept out of the college football playoff. It will not happen. It will not happen.
It could happen.
I could play in the 2021 Masters too if I win the U.S. Amateur. Not going to happen though.
And I think because they're going to look at OU's schedule and say they didn't deserve it. So you want Iowa State, you're going to want Baylor, you're going to want that stuff. That's why it's going to matter.
Eddie,
half of the SEC is terrible.
But that's not what perception.
That's not perception though, Eddie. I mean, we agree with you on that. But you're arguing against perception. You're saying that it doesn't matter.
If that happens, Oklahoma should pull out of the NCAA.
I won't disagree. I'll probably join you on the front lines for that fight.
I mean, you think about how close it was between Georgia losing to Bama and Georgia Kirk Herbstreit beating the drum
for Georgia to pass up Oklahoma last year.
OU
as a 2-loss team.
Wouldn't you say, though, that the perception as Oklahoma as a whole, I mean, you listen to Joe Klatt or whoever.
Only Joe Klatt. That's the thing.
Yeah, he's the only one.
There's nobody else beating the drum for OU right now.
There really isn't. Everybody's got them on the outside right now as 5th. And
because
I know
the other teams haven't lost.
I know that's got to play out. But like we're saying, if you have that position that somehow keeps 2 SEC teams in the top 4, and Clemson doesn't lose, and Ohio State doesn't lose, you kind of need that bump. It helps.
And guys, remember, Alabama. Say in this scenario we're talking about, Alabama plays them tough, but they lose, and Tua comes back. Okay, from there on, Alabama has at Mississippi State. They've got their annual bullshit game. They're going to play West Carolina at home, and then their last game is at Auburn. Say he goes to Auburn and they beat Auburn 56-24. I mean, they just run Auburn out of the stadium.
And he lights it up.
Which they damn well might, because Auburn's another SEC team that I'm like, they're not as good as you think they are.
Right.
And
they would have beat Florida if they were worth it.
Yes, exactly. Like Florida, they're worse than Florida. That says all you have to say. So you got that win, and that's the last thing in voters' minds. And then you throw in Tua wasn't healthy. Tua wasn't good against LSU. I'm not saying I think it's an argument that should win, but it's an argument that people will buy.
And if you think Paul Feinbaum's not going to be on every airwave on ESPN saying that OU should be left out in that scenario,
he'll be conflicted. His love of Jalen Hurts,
although he does
Bama?
really want Jalen Hurts to play Alabama.
Paul Feinbaum. Who cares what he has to say?
Who's Mel Kiper?
F-bomb.
But this is where we're at because OU schedule just feels so blah.
Yeah.
This is what we talk about.
And a lot of it,
Welcome to Big 12. Today's Big 12.
A lot of it is because of preseason notions. Baylor wasn't any good in the preseason, so they can't be good now. Auburn and Florida were good in the preseason, so they have to be good now.
Eddie, let me ask you this. I mean, just nationally, I don't know how much stuff you watch or not, but have you seen a lot of people praising Oklahoma's defense? Because you certainly saw everybody talking the last few years about how their defense was holding them back. Have you seen anybody that's been like? Because do any of those people have any type of decision making process in the college football playoff? Though I would say that those people influence the people who do have decisions. I don't know. Is Condoleezza Rice still on that damn thing?
I was saying we act like that's a bunch of learned people that watch the game really closely.
Yeah, they're watching every game.
They're watching college football final just like the rest of us.
Body clock,
baby.
See,
game management was one term. They led for time possession.
I mean, we know that
the scoreboard for
college football playoff is a bunch of idiots to begin with. But
agreed.
So that's why this could happen.
Kind of glad that we're dropping the F-bomb today. I
mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's been a while since it's just been a barrage like this. I mean, Eddie, we're not against you. Nobody's against you. It's just
I think that there's a better chance.
Pretending like it like bias and perception doesn't exist when it does. It just does. You can't avoid it.
Here's a good way. Let's see how far we are all.
I think though that if OU is able to run the table and they go 12-0, win the college 13. Or 13-0, 12-0 and then 13-0, going into the
There's no way they should be left out of the college football play. But I don't know what else is out there. What's going to happen?
I think the national narrative on Oklahoma would be, wow, what a turned around complete team this is for them to be able to.
And if they've got to hold people to 20, 14 points a game.
For them to be able to run the table, though, I think there would be a lot of people saying, see, this team is different. This group is different. Like, I think that there would be a better chance that they're punished for their mishaps in years past than there would be because of a Georgia or two SEC teams being undefeated. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do, but Eddie, let's just say they play Texas and Ellinger has a big day and he drops, I don't know, 38 on Oklahoma, 34 on Oklahoma.
And that's the last thing people see.
And that's the last thing people see. And I guarantee you, other than Joel Klatt, no one will bring the conversation of that's exactly what he did to LSU. No one will say it. Because it's like we live in this alternative reality. It's that damn thing. I got into it on Twitter yesterday with a Florida Hall of Famer, Jaquez Green.
I know you did. I loved it.
I didn't see this.
Because his ass, oh my God.
Oh, it's like, bad.
Like he was trying to.
By Green's part.
He quote tweeted Mike Houck because Mike Houck said something about
Jalen Hurts with his efficiency and stuff. Yeah.
And he was like Big 12 defenses and did like the shoulder shrug, emoji. And I was like, man, it's not the same thing. And then I literally did a side-by-side of LSU and Oklahoma against Texas, and it was even more it was a bigger scope than I expected it to be. And he was like, you can't tell me anything. Big 12 defenses suck.
Yeah, it's like, it don't matter what you say.
All right. Good luck running your 7-on-7 program, bud.
Yeah, it was. No, he's a OC at a big program in Florida. Like, I try not be too shitty, but I was like, dude, this is just a joke. Like, you're not even.
You had it with Deion Sanders after OU's defense performs against Texas, saying OU's defense still is suspect. It's just the narrative because of what they've done the last 2 years is still that way for anyone who's not watching.
The narrative has been there.
But we know Deion Sanders isn't watching. He's not sitting around and watching OU football on Saturdays.
That's the problem. Is the narrative has been there for so long. The people that don't pay attention now have heard the narrative because it's been reinforced year after year after year. Those same people that don't pay attention, they're not recognizing that things are changing. They're not recognizing that OU is playing differently. And I'm not saying those people on the committee are going to be in that room because they're going to recognize it.
I think that tone would change 13 games in as opposed to 7 games in.
Look, this is what this is. OU has to go and win a national championship. I mean, that's the only thing that's going to just stop it completely. because everybody will be watching.
Unless they win
night.
every game and they're told they can't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun.
Which is, if that's the case, if that were to happen, I
would all
will lead a riot into
Yes.
Arlington or wherever the hell that they are.
Irving.
But you get
We'll get banned from Irving.
Protest.
We'll make it. We'll make it the next Area 51.
Oh, we will be going to people's homes.
you get the OU defense turnaround. That's not being talked about, but the LSU offense is. That's kind of the disconnect too.
Yeah.
It's like, why is the LSU offense turnaround being?
See, I've heard that, but every time that comes up, it's look, if LSU can turn it around offensively, look at Oklahoma and defensively. It's the same argument.
Yeah,
Right.
but LSU's getting praise for turning it around offensively. Joe Burrow's
Yeah,
gonna
but they're
win
not
the
getting
Heisman.
they're not getting dinged because their defense is not playing
But
as well.
OU's defense is not getting that same type of equal level praise of turning itself around,
Right.
where the LSU offense
Right.
is.
And Josh, to answer your question, I think it would be much better for Oklahoma to play if Texas were to do that and Ehlinger were to put up 38. That would mean that Texas has run the table, right, to get to the Big 12
Absolutely.
championship game. So beating a 11-1 Texas would be much stronger, in my opinion, than beating a 10-1 Baylor that you've already beat.
Oh, agree completely.
Yeah.
Again, and it's just about perception. I don't think
Sure.
that
Because
there's any
I think by
discernible
then
difference.
Texas will be back in the top 12.
Yeah, how
They could be in the
Oh,
top
yeah.
10
How
again.
high ranked would a 2-loss Texas team be going into Arlington?
If they were to run the
9 or
table,
10.
it would. Yeah,
They'll
it would-
be-
I think they'd be top 10.
It could be. They'd be 10-2.
Because I mean, like
Well, it's just like
Texas,
it's just
they're
like the
one of those
argument
teams
that we're
would
having.
be the
Yeah.
top rated.
Yeah, I mean, and their name
if-
value. I mean,
Exactly, they're going to be the top of the 1-loss team or the top of the 2-loss teams or just because of who they are,
and
rather
because
than
these f***ing people from Ames, Iowa, lose to Iowa every year. Like if you play,
They're ranked again.
If you play Iowa State, they're just gonna be like, "Yeah, I remember when they lost to Iowa."
they can beat the
I
Cowboys.
mean, how do you lose to Iowa?
They'll stay ranked.
No, that is true. I do think, though, in a way, and what we've seen over the last couple of years is, if OU keeps putting up the numbers that they're putting up, I think that these olds in the college football playoff they will look at Oklahoma and
Eddie, son of a
offensively die. Go vote and die. That's all you're here for, so just do it. I think that they would put what?
go into that room, that room in the playoff. How many do you think are aware that Oklahoma's giving up 5 yards more per game than Auburn, LSU, Florida, and Alabama? Not one of them knows that. I guarantee it. Like they still see it as that's OU. And the thing that they won't even acknowledge is that OU's playing in this past crazy league and doing this. Like, this is the time of year when we thought Oklahoma's rankings would start falling. And they're doing
increasing.
the exact opposite.
They're 28th in total defense. What,
Yep.
23rd in something.
They're giving up
scoring.
fewer yards per play than Florida right now.
Well, they don't play the high-powered SEC offenses like Florida does.
I mean, I don't.
Obviously.
Florida,
and a lot of it is not even OU's doing. It's the fact that other teams are trying to attack Oklahoma by slowing the game down. So they're making there be fewer plays in a game, which is also helping Oklahoma's defense.
sure.
Which is what K-State's
Because-
going to try and do.
I mean,
this
I would
week.
hope that all of this is looked at when these guys meet.
I haven't.
I
gone
just don't
through
think.
the-
I just don't think that
I
there's
don't think
any
too
possible
highly of
way.
these people.
The
You
bottom
say
line
that
is
though,
Eddie
and
thinks
OU's
more
been
of
in
the human
3 of the
race
last
than we
4
do.
years. The what?
I said the bottom line, Eddie, for the first time maybe in podcast history, you have more expectation of a fellow human being than anybody else in the podcast.
I
feel
just
like you
know. I
generally
just know
expect
how
less.
college football. I feel like I know how college football works, and the blue bloods are taken care of in this sport more than anybody else.
Who's more of a blue blood than Bama?
Bama's one of the
Well, you know what?
2-3 programs that
Nebraska's
can lord it
a-
over Oklahoma.
Nebraska's a blue blood.
No,
but
they
they
aren't.
can't get their.
Nebraska's not a blue blood.
They've had it taken away.
They're not
They're
a
a
modern.
blue blood.
They're not a modern
Now
day
you're
blue
just
blood.
trying to bait Eddie.
They're not a modern day blue blood.
They're not.
They're
There's like
not. But,
5
I
teams
mean,
that are blue bloods
But
in the
they,
modern day.
historically, they are a blue blood.
Not in my lifetime.
Okay.
In the
Eddie-
mid '90s, you weren't alive.
They were for I guess the first 9 years of my life. So not in the last 25 years.
But so what? They made the championship 2001 after getting destroyed by the Buffaloes.
Yeah, that
Miami
wasn't the real
destroyed
Nebraska
them.
team, though.
But that was like the last time they've done anything.
I'm talking about
It's a
Tom
dead
Osborne.
program. Dead program.
I don't disagree, but again, they are an historic blue blood, and a whatever you want to do.
I just don't think there's any way. There's a lot that will play out.
I know
the next
a lot
weeks.
will be decided.
But let's be real. Like, okay, Eddie, you rank it as a 0% chance. I think again, we all agree it shouldn't be the way it plays out. If OU's undefeated, they should be there. We all agree. I would say it's like a 10% chance. Like, I don't think it's a good chance.
Yeah, it's a
but
very
I wouldn't
small
rule it
chance.
out.
I think that when they would sit back
It's a
and they'd look
perfect
at everything, it would be a perfect storm. It would be a nightmare for the college football playoff if that happened. But at the same time, I also think that a lot goes into storylines, and they're not keeping a Jalen Hurts out. It's just not going to happen. And I know he's a small part of the.
So now you're calling ESPN.
Strong-arm
tactics.
They would 100% do that. 100%. College football is about money and TV ratings. That's it. They don't care about the student athlete. Like I don't even think that we even act like they are anymore. We know exactly what college football is about. Look at the Heisman Trophy, one of the most prestigious trophies or awards in all of sports. It's turned into a mockery.
Okay.
It's for money. It's all for money.
Wrong about that.
Eddie's joining the Peace Corps next.
No, I'm
You're
not.
like Peace Corps college football guy now.
It's
You're
the
PETA
fact.
for
It's a fact.
trophies.
There's only like 6 or 7 teams that can win the championship every year.
But
unless
that's
you go
because
undefeated.
there's only 6 or 7 that are good enough, though, too. It's not like they're keeping out.
I think it goes both ways a little bit.
Iowa State on purpose. I mean, they just aren't good enough.
Now, I mean, Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, OSU probably to an extent. Those are teams
OSU could have been in it one year if they would have beat Iowa State on that Monday night game or whatever the hell that thing was.
It go all the way back to 2014, though. It's like if Baylor or TCU had the OU logo, 0 chance they're being left out of the college football playoff.
Well, yeah, when Baylor and TCU had that thing, yeah. If it had been OU and Texas, somebody would have been in. Absolutely. I agree with that.
100%.
That was the perfect storm, too, with the Buckeyes winning 58-0. That's the last thing people
But again,
remembered.
better helmets for the committee.
Absolutely. 100. It's not even.
I will say
like
this.
it's a joke if people don't believe that.
I think everybody does believe that. But, there being some conspiracy that a deserving team is going to get left out for a blue blood, I don't think happens. If the resumes, I don't, is there one time you can think of resume was just clearly better other than TCU, Baylor?
I mean, I guess you could make the argument for Ohio State. What was that? Was that last year?
When they didn't go?
No, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Then
OU
Michigan
got
State
the
went.
edge.
Yeah. Was that 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that was because Michigan State was already in, right?
No, that's 20.
Well, OU had already in OU
2015.
OU beat Ohio State head to head is
right.
basically what it came down to.
Yeah.
2017 was that.
But OU when they lost to Houston and Ohio State, they were a good candidate at the end of the year, but they just weren't. They were never going to get in because they had 2 losses.
Yeah, OU and Penn State were maybe 2 of the better teams. They just had those 2 early losses. Didn't matter.
I think OU will get in before the Schooner is back up and running. Apparently.
OU administration kneeling to PETA isn't exactly what I wanted to lead into, but you've forced my hand.
Do you think PETA had something to do with this now?
Oh yeah,
you are full of conspiracy theories today.
PCOU, that's all they are.
They have to rebuild it. Like, I don't understand why they can't get it back on the field. Like, they have an engineering.
We can
program.
rebuild it.
It's because they don't want to. It's because they don't want to step on anybody's toes. PETA members buy tickets too.
Do they have to like take this out to the Oklahoma horseshoeing school to get it fixed or something? Out on I-35?
I mean, we're talking about the same school that banned horns down from
social media accounts.
From social media accounts.
Cheer
and
squads.
from cheer squads. Like, I'm joking about that being a PETA thing, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
It is just I never thought
it's a very soft university.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
never thought. Okay, it's done for the year. I mean, they're going on the road.
I mean, there are two.
They got a
games,
bye
though.
week.
There are
there's
only
two games, but still, those 2 games are from a month from now. You think you could have it? I mean, they don't take it to Arlington anyway. I don't think.
It's just the start of it all. It's going to be eliminated by next year, probably. Somebody's probably offended by it.
Would it ruin your day if it was? Do you even video it when it comes out?
I mean, I have before. I didn't on Saturday when it tipped, but
you were like a right fielder that was picking a daisy.
Yeah, I was doing something. I mean, it was like 28-7.
Yeah, it was 28-7.
Yeah, there's no reason really for you to. Did you at least because I really wanted to know what all that shit was that was on the field.
Oh, it was just
how is there so much crap in that thing?
I'm sure people just, the Roughnecks, instead of putting stuff in their pockets or whatever, just throw it in there to.
Yeah, they never think it's
like
gonna
phones and
all spill out for everyone to see.
I don't think it was anything crazy.
But it literally I think we said this after the game. It was Shin's line. It looked like there was a gypsy pile up on the highway.
It's hilarious. I thought it was funny.
Well, and then the video comes out and everybody's like, Roughnecks are misogynist. They don't care about that girl at all.
Yeah, that became a thing.
God, people.
That became a thing on Twitter.
They suck. People suck so
they
bad.
Care more about them horses and the wagon than they did about
I think it was
that
more
girl.
like they care more about the what do you call that? Inert object, inanimate object. They cared more about the wood and the whatever fabric than they did a human being. I mean,
wagon's probably worth more than her.
That's even more. That's my God. That's more of a PETA take to me that they cared more about the wagon than the girl than the horses.
It might be true.
What PETA said about the horse. Anyway, all right. I think we've run out of real estate. On
we had a recap recruiting weekend. And they brought a lot of kids.
Oh
in.
yeah,
Josh, you ready to roll? Keyshawn Lawrence, Reggie Grimes, etc.
Yeah, I thought just talking to some people, it was kind of a late developing thing. When I was talking to some people on Sunday morning, I just didn't get the feeling like much had happened. There wasn't really any big change. You hadn't really made a move. But as the last few days have gone on, I get the impression that if Oklahoma felt better about one of the two of them, it's Reggie Grimes. I think they really felt like they made a move with him, really impressed him and his dad with how they presented things. I know from some of the people I talked to, there was they really felt like Grimes fit in well with the program. He would be kind of, a future leader of that defense, that kind of personality. So I just think they liked him a lot. He liked them. And I got the impression, there's a lot of talk that Grimes and Lawrence would like to play together. And, I don't want to go into everything we're going to talk about in Scoop, but there were some interesting connections being made between those two. I think Oklahoma definitely made things interesting with him.
And then where are you headed this weekend?
Sure. Tomorrow, going to go out kind of West Houston. I'm going to go see Oklahoma wide receiver commitment Cody Jackson and Reuben Fothery, his classmate, the big offensive tackle offer from Richmond Foster. They're playing the number one team in the state, Shadow Creek, which has guys like Alec Bryant, Xavier Alford, just a whole bunch of big-time guys. So there's probably going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 Division I players on the field. So it should be a lot of fun. And then Friday night, I'm going to go over and, live my best life watching Bryce Foster going head-to-head with Tunmise Adelier as Katie Tompkins and Katie Taylor go head-to-head. So that's just going to be I saw that game last year. It was my first chance to see both, and that's kind of when I was like, wow, these guys are really special. And now to get another look at them and kind of watch them. Tompkins won that game last year. I think they should win again this year. Tompkins is one of those teams that this time last year nobody was talking about. Now, they gave Katie a heck of a game earlier in the year. They're kind of a sneaky team in Texas, and like I said, it's largely Adelier and their quarterback Jalen Milroe that's a Texas commitment.
What is what's the latest on Foster? Any movement there with him?
Not really. He's taken things pretty slow. I keep up with him fairly regularly, and Bill Bedenbaugh's talking with him a lot. There's a good relationship there. Obviously, he came up for the Houston game, and I think he just he sees what Oklahoma's doing, and I think there was a lot of talk early on with his relationship with Jalen Milroe, which I know it's going to sound funny because they're not at the same school, but those guys and Hayden Connor, who's also committed to Texas in the 2021 class and is Bryce Foster's teammate, they all played Little League ball growing up together, so they know each other very well. They go back a long ways, and there was this kind of belief that, Bryce Foster's going to pick Texas. I've got to think that kid watching that OU Texas game was like, whoa, that I see one offensive line doing great stuff, and another offensive line just getting ragdolled, regardless of what the Joe Moore Award had to say about it. But yeah, I think Oklahoma's in a good spot with him. I would say the odds are probably with UT and A&M a little bit right now, just due to proximity, some of those things. But he's made it up to Oklahoma a couple of times. He definitely likes OU. So I still think, he's a guy that Oklahoma has a real chance with, and I guess I should tag on here at the end. Late last week, I had a chance to see Colin Montgomery and Donovan Jackson, and the idea that Donovan Jackson, Bryce Foster, Ruben Fatheree, Colin Montgomery, Hayden Connor, all these guys are just in the Houston area in the 2021 class, it just blows my mind. Donovan Jackson and Bryce Foster are probably the best two guards in the country and live about 20 minutes from each other. It's just unbelievable. And I think Ruben Fatheree has a chance to be a top 10 NFL left tackle someday. He's just, his size and athleticism is just off the charts. Then you throw in these other guys who any other year would be the best offensive lineman in Texas, but they're just, Bryce Foster he's got a chance to be one of those, maybe what Creed Humphrey is to a center, Bryce Foster is to a guard. He's that special.
All right. We'll see Dontae Manning on Friday night, and we're hoping to get a chance to talk to him. I think he's told us that he is receptive to that. So
they all are until they lose the last second.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of.
We'll see.
So hopefully that doesn't mean that his career is jinxed if we go and see him. Trajan Bridges is doing okay. We all three went and saw him. We just don't have a great track record
of non-regional or non.
Was it what was Travion or whatever?
Tavion
Thomas. Yeah, I don't even think he plays for Cincinnati.
Apparently in other situations, just one of you, it can just there's a smaller impact. Bob ruined the Transformers in Irving ISD the other day, or Arlington ISD.
Sure
so.
Did.
Destroyed
I will
Trayvon
say,
Weston's chance to play.
We haven't heard Breece Hall's career after we went and saw him.
Yeah.
With Maurice Hicks.
You could argue they'd be 7-0 if Breece Hall was playing from the
Yeah, a lot
of
people are pissed at Matt Campbell for not starting or not playing him earlier. I don't know if he got in the doghouse or what the deal was there.
Well, you fans can tell him all about it because it sounds like Matt Campbell by the decisions that he's made, he's going to make OU miss the college football playoff, even if they finish out. So,
yes.
Wow. I feel like Eddie's in the corner with his hat over his eyes, his arms folded, and he's just not talking to anyone. He's just pissed.
I just want to fast forward to 5 weeks because now I want this to happen.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40 from MidFirst Bank. Make sure you go to midfirst.com/U40. Sign up for that OU Rewards credit card. Thank you, Eddie Radosevich, for blessing us with your presence today and your sunshiny exterior.
Thank you.
Thank you to Bob Prisbillo, who will now probably go home and babysit for a while.
Yes.
And thank you to Mommy and Me's own Josh McQuistion. I am.
Go ahead.
No, it's your show. Go.
I know. I kind of forgot we were in the exit, so I apologize for that. But as you're listening to this, I'm probably doing the Mommy and Me swim class, so enjoy it.
And by the way, basketball just around the corner as well. I know OU Media Day coming up next week, so we'll have full coverage of that as well.
That'll be next Wednesday. Obviously, they had Bryce Thompson in over the weekend. I'm not saying, Kate, that the Jayhawks are a lock, but when you start hearing we did everything we could, that's sort of when you know what? It's out of our control.
Now it's up to the FBI's. And the FBI's.
Because it's clear the Sooners felt they hit it out of the park, did everything that they wanted to do, but the general trend on Monday and Tuesday was it still might not be enough.
Did they use like FBI acronyms all over the arena? Like free Bryce in state. Like there should have been just signs all over the arena.
They really pumped up Trae Young, and not just like a one and done, but the marketing that can go into it, how they can get him ready. And maybe the thought of playing with Davion Harmon for 1 year, because it's clear those two really would enjoy being a 1-1-2 combo. We'll see. I mean, he hasn't made his decision yet. They're still talking things over, but the general thought was that the Sooners had a better chance coming into the weekend than they do at this point.
All right, that's going to do it. I am Carey Murdoch. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys back here next week as we head into the bye week. Thank God we really need one. On the next edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.